Hello everyone. Okay, here we are. We are at lesson 9, which is called Imagination. And once again, we are reading from the really cool Charles Fillmore book, The Science of Being and Christian Healing. And it really is a great book for explaining the main faculties of being and how we can become more aligned with them, which will inevitably, automatically, under divine law, make us more powerful, more deliberate manifestors, and just better catalysts for divine love, and just being really ambassadors for the light, and really help us to see the change and be the change that we wish to see in the world around us, because it starts from in here, because we are the conduits of the God essence, the primordial essence. So let's carry on with lesson 9, and then at the end I will read through the statements for the actualization or realization of divine mind. I've highlighted quite a lot in this chapter, so I feel like it's a good one. The teachings about the things of spirits are said to be mystical. We have thought them so because we have not come into consciousness of the many faculties necessary to comprehend a spirit. Victor Hugo said, "There are no occult or hidden truths. Everything is luminous with mind." So we find in the study of truth that what is called mysterious and occult is simply a range of facts that man has not yet explored. When he expands his mind and takes in a larger horizon, he sees the interrelation of a multitude of hitherto unknown laws, which, from his former viewpoint, seemed mysterious. Mind manifests through faculties. If mind is to comprehend increasingly, there must be an increase of these avenues. That man has latent possibilities goes without argument. That there is limit to the ability of the mind is unthinkable. What a man imagines he can do, that he can do. The doing is a question of adopting the right way. To allow the imagination to drift in daydreams never brings anything to pass. Ideas must be worked up into living, breathing, thinking things. Man can compress his vagrant ideas into visibility as the chemist liquefies and makes visible the invisible atmosphere. But to do this, he must, like the chemist, have the necessary machinery. Physiology says that in order to think, man must have brains. However, thinking is not limited to the material brain cells, but like everything else in the universe, has a wide range of expression. There are brains within brains and cells within cells. All through the body are brain centers whose offices have not yet been determined. Psychology shows that these nerve centers are acted upon by invisible forces. It teaches that man has what is called a subconscious mind, which transcends the conscious mind in knowledge and in ability. Jesus gives us this still higher teaching concerning our mental powers. Man has a mind called the Lord, transcending both the conscious and the subconscious minds. Yet the harmonious working together of these three seemingly separate minds is necessary to the bringing forth of the latent possibilities of the man. In truth, there is but one mind. In it, all things exist. Accurately speaking, man does not have three minds, nor does he even have one mind, but he expresses the one mind in a multitude of ways. To believe in the possession of an individual mind and that it is necessary to store up knowledge in it makes living burdensome. This is why very intellectual people are often impractical and unsuccessful. They have accumulated more knowledge than they have wisdom and power to apply. Like the miser who starves surrounded by his gold, they perish for lack of real understanding. Through thinking of their stored up knowledge as a personal possession, they have insulated it from the original fount of wisdom and life, and it has consequently become stale and forceless. There is in man that which, when opened, will place him in direct contact with universal knowledge and enable him instantly and continuously to draw forth anything that he may wish to know. God is our fount of wisdom, even as he is our source of supply. The understanding of the Christ mind reveals that man of himself knows nothing. Jesus, who developed the higher consciousness, claimed that all his knowledge and power came direct from the Father. I can of myself do nothing. The Father abiding in me doeth his works. All that man really needs is the quickening and rounding of thinking centres in his consciousness, that having been done, divine mind will think through him. This supreme mind holds man at its centre, a perfect instrument through which to express its possibilities. The writer of the first chapter of Genesis says that man is formed in the image and after the likeness of God. He is the I am age, image of the identical I am of God mind in expression. God looks into the mirror of the universe and sees himself as man. He gives himself to man, and man in his highest is God manifest. He that hath seen me hath seen the Father. Thus God gives to his image the power to express all that he is. This not only includes man's ability to think, but also the power to shape and form thought. The formative power of thought requires a distinctive faculty, which is called the imagination. The mind makes its forms in a way similar to that in which cooks make biscuits. First is the gathering of the materials, then the mixing, then the biscuit cutting, which gives shape to the substance in thinking. Man accumulates a mass of ideas about substance and life, and with his imagination he makes them into forms. Whatever we mirror in our minds becomes a living, active thing, and through it we are connected with the world around us. Through the work of the imaging faculty, every thought makes a form, and multitudes of thoughts make multitudes of forms. These crowd in upon one another around the central I am age or image, and appear in what is called the body. Physiology says that all the organs of the body are made up of cells, and that every cell contains the essential elements of its particular organ. The liver is made of a multitude of liver elements, the heart of heart elements, and so forth. The starting point is an idea, and through the mechanism of the mind, often erroneously called the mechanism of the body, man forms his organism. With this key, anyone can unlock the door of his temple and in mind visit all its various rooms and set the furniture in order. The imagination has its center of action in the front brain. It uses what phrenology calls the perceptive faculties. It is really the author of these faculties. Size, weight, form, colour, and the like are its children. When it flashes its light into the cells that make up the organs, they at once respond to the thought, and out of substance visible and invisible make forms that correspond to the idea held in imagination. If the idea originates in spirit, the creation is harmonious and according to law. The nerve centers are so sensitive and receptive to thought that they take impressions from without and make in the ether the forms that correspond to the impressions received. This is an inversion of the creative law, which is that all creations shall have their patterns in the mind. When man allows his imagination to run on in a lawless way, he brings about such discord in mind and in body that the flood of error thought submerges his understanding and he is drowned in it. And God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And I, behold, I do bring the flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, because all thought had become so corrupt, and it needed to be purified, as within, so without. All things, including the mind, work from centre to circumference. A knowledge of this fact puts man on his guard and causes him to direct that his imagination shall not create things in his mind that have been impressed upon him from without or from the exterior. This does not imply that the outer world is all in error or that all appearance is the creation of finite mind. It means that the outer is not a safe pattern from which to make the members of the body. When Moses was instructed by the Lord to furnish the tabernacle, the command was, "See that thou make all things according to the pattern, and that was showed thee in the mount." The mount is the place of high understanding in mind, which Jesus called the kingdom of God within us. The wise metaphysician resolves into ideas each mental picture, each form and shape seen in visions, dreams, and the like. The idea is the foundation, the real, when understood and moulded by the power of the word. It creates or recreates the form at the direction of the individual I am. By working with this simple law, man may become an adept or a master. By handling the cause of things, he attains mastery over things. And instead of giving up to his emotions and feelings, he controls them. Instead of letting his imagination run riot, conjuring up all sorts of situations, he holds it steadily to a certain set of ideas that he wants brought forth. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose imagination is stayed on thee. The history of Joseph is the history of man's imagination developed under divine law. His dreams were messages from God, and God interpreted them for him. His life is one of the most interesting and fascinating romances in the Bible. For a time, the way of Joseph was thorny, but through his obedience to spirit, he reached the highest place in the king's domain. This shows that man begins the development of the imagination in the darkness of materiality and the depths of ignorance represented by Joseph's being cast into the pit and sold into Egypt. Through spiritual understanding, the dreamer becomes the most practical son of the family. By following his dream interpretations, multitudes are saved from starvation. The individual application of this is having our attention fixed on spirit. We discern the ebb and flow of the forces in the organism, and we know how to conserve and husband our resources. Instead of treating the visions of the night as idle dreams, we should inquire into them, seeking to know the cause and the meaning of every mental picture. Every dream has origin in thought, and every thought makes a mind picture. The study of dreams and visions is an important one, because it is through these mental pictures that the Lord communicates with man in a certain stage of his unfoldment. Every form and thing, whether in the ether or on the earth, represents some idea of mental attitude. The idea is first projected into mind substance and afterward formed in consciousness. The mind of man sees all things through thought forms made by the imagination. The lover idealizes the object of his affection and is often disappointed on close acquaintance. We are always creating ideals that have existence in our mind alone. We could cite without number to prove the power of the imagination in forming and transforming the body. Although one mind can suggest to another and produce any desired condition, if there be mental receptivity, this can be done most effectively through the hypnotic state. But hypnosis is not always necessary. Experiments prove that if we are constantly suggesting all sorts of things to one another and getting results according to the intensity of the imagination, thus disease is reflected into susceptible minds by people's merely talking about disease as an awful reality. So stop listening to propaganda. A man can imagine that he has some evil condition in body or affairs, and through the imaging law build it up until it becomes manifest. On the other hand, he can use the same power to make good appear on every side. The marks of old age can be erased from the body by one's mentally seeing the body as youthful. If you want to be healthy, do not imagine so vain a thing as decrepitude. Make your body perfect by seeing perfection in it. Transient patching up with lotions and external applications is foolish. The work must be done by inner transformation. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. The highest and best work of the imagination is the marvelous transformation that it works in character. Imagine that you are one with the principle of good, and you will become truly good. And you will see where that gets you. It's extraordinary. To imagine oneself perfect fixes the idea of perfection in the invisible mind substance, and the mind forces at once begin the work of bringing forth perfection. That is the end of this lesson. So we will now move into the affirmations for the realization of divine mind. Perfection in form established is the title for these statements. So we will tune in with 3 deep breaths, in through the nose and out through the mouth, and then I will read the statements and leave a space for you to repeat them either quietly to yourself or out loud, as you prefer. Inhalation 1. And exhale. Second inhalation. And exhale. Third inhalation. And exhale. I see my countenance in its divine perfection. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose imagination is stayed on thee. I see perfection in all forms and shapes. His sun is the brightness of his glory and the express image of his person. I see the light of Christ consciousness always. I am formed anew every day in my mind and body. Be renewed in the spirit of your mind. My spirit is quickened in Christ. In a dream, in a vision of the night, he openeth the ears of men and sealeth their instruction. I know the reality back of the shadows. Okay, and that is the end of today's video. Feel free to replay the statements to yourself, either from today's teaching or from previous lessons. I really can't highlight enough the importance of helping these statements, these teachings to absorb into your being. So the more you listen to them, even if you don't fully grasp what's being said, the subconscious and the unconscious minds do know. So that's why it's so powerful to persevere with this and really let it take hold of your spirit, because everything does work from the inside out. And, you know, if we think of ourselves in that way, we realize our true power. But if we think of ourselves as just this is a person, and everything that's coming in from all directions is what's informing us and making us who we are, and is dictating to us the narrative of our life, then we become completely unempowered. So we need to remember the Christ, the power within, and we need to deny the things around us that we aren't interested in, that we don't want to witness or see or experience, and really hold on to the truth and the possibility of what can be when we are all working in this way together. And the more of us that accept that and align ourselves with love, the better our surroundings will be. And even individually, because, you know, time is not linear. So even if you feel like it's futile because, oh, well, even if I'm doing this, Tom, Dick and Harry aren't doing it, so I'm still going to be stuck in this similar, like, reality. You can't think like that, because actually time is not linear, and so you can quantum leap and shift at any time into different mind spaces, and therefore into different realities. And we can see this version of reality progressing and becoming better and healing, instead of the opposite. So hold true to that and have the faith. Go back to the teaching on faith and remember that even if it's as small as a mustard seed, even if you're like, no, Kelly, come on, it's all doom and gloom. Just cling on to the small piece of faith inside you that says, I hope she's right. What if she's right? Let me just believe she's right, because I've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. So thanks again. Many blessings to all of you. May divine love really manifest itself in you in all ways, all the time, every minute of every day. And peace and light.